Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, red cards, missed goals and suspicious referee calls. How deep does match fixing run in football? I don't know how I did it, but I managed to drag Maliska Blau away from her World Cup scorecard. Oh my goodness, she's such a footy fan.
One eye on the screen, the other on Twitter.
But all due down to work as well. What is our online community saying about our topic today?
Well, luckily they're watching too, and they also have lots of things to say. A lot of that is questions, and some of them look a little something like this from Ozone, who tweeted, "What influences and persuades players to fix matches?" Answering this first will answer the solution of match fixing in any games. So we aim to do that in today's show, but we can't do it without you. Tweet us your questions and your comments with hashtag AJStream.
So you keep the stream sharp, so share your ideas on what you'd like to see on the show. Really easy to do that. You can check us out on Facebook and you can post the stories that you're passionate about. Just go to facebook.com/AJStream, and if it's a really great idea, it could end up on this very program.
Catherine Starr, President and founder of Safe for Athletes, and I'm in the stream.
Football, it's the world's most popular sport, but is it being threatened by match fixing? English courts put a spotlight on the practice last week after businessmen and a former pro footballer were found guilty of rigging matches. Just last year, Europol investigated almost 700 suspicious matches across the world. Concerns extend to international play, causing FIFA's security director to weigh in.
The fixers are trying to look for football matches which are generating a huge betting volume. And obviously international football tournaments such as the World Cup are generating this kind of huge volumes. And therefore the World Cup in general has a certain risk. Nevertheless, I do not think that from the point of security, the threat of match manipulation at the World Cup is a big one.
So as football officials grapple with prevention, how do you even begin to separate terrible football from corruption? Joining us to discuss this, we have Patrick J. He runs the Hong Kong Jockey Club. That's one of the world's largest sports betting operators. Catherine Ordway is a sport lawyer and lecturer at the University of Canberra in Australia. And Soren Pedersen is a spokesman from Europol. That's a law enforcement agency that has been investigating match fixing cases. So it's great to have you all here in the stream. Welcome, everybody. Let me start with Patrick. How big a business is football for you as a bookie, Patrick?
Well, the global market, Femi, is worth 1 trillion, and that's with a T, not a B for billion or an M for million. It's worth 1 trillion US dollars.
How is,
with
yeah.
9.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick. How's that even possible?
Well, that's even possible if you come to Asia, and you will see where there are 65,000 soccer games a year are streamed live on TV, live on websites, etc. And there is a huge propensity to gamble. The illegal market in around the world is about 90% of the market. And what this means is that there are huge amounts of bookmakers and operators that are processing a colossal amount of bets, which leads you to a 1 trillion US dollar market.
What's the biggest bet that you're seeing right now for a footy game? Obviously, World Cup is on right now. You're seeing outrageous bets.
There are lots of very large bets, but large bets doesn't mean corrupt bets.
Yeah.
Sometimes corrupt bets can be small bets. We try and focus on the source of the bet as opposed to the size of the bet to try and determine whether there is some kind of corruption.
All right, so bringing Catherine into the conversation. So we've got gambling and then you have corruption. Those two things are not the same, Catherine. Can you explain why?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Of course, gambling's been going on in sport for hundreds of years, ever since there's been sport, really. And horse racing was set up just for gambling. And that doesn't mean there's anything corrupt in it, although there's certainly been plenty of scandals in horse racing over the years. And I'm sure Patrick can attest to that. But that doesn't mean that that is illegal. There's regulated markets for gambling all around the world for all kinds of sports, and that's fine. What is a problem is when people are trying to ensure that they know the outcome ahead of time. And that's when it gets quite sticky.
Monica.
Well, Patrick, when you're talking about $1 trillion market, it leads to this question that we got from Hassan, who says match fixing is an organized crime, but since it doesn't cause major problems in a nation, cops don't investigate as much. So you're, of course, talking about the betting market. This person is linking that to organized crime. Is match fixing on that same level of organized crime?
Let's be absolutely clear. Hassan makes one point which is absolutely right, which is match fixing is indeed conducted by multicultural, transnational, transcontinental organized crime in the same way that they're involved in prostitution, gun running, kidnapping, bank fraud, etc. This match fixing is just another activity in which they get involved in it. Where Hassan is wrong is that this is not a bloodless crime. It's not that people don't suffer. There is huge amounts of suffering. There is not only suffering in terms of soccer players who are violently abused, who are threatened, whose lives are seriously undermined by match fixers and organized crime, but there is also, and I'm not trying to make a pitch for my employer, but we are the #1 charity donator in the whole of Asia. We give $3 billion to charity every year. Now that builds schools, it builds roads, it builds public transport, it builds hospitals, etc. If match fixers manipulate games which take money out of our pockets, it takes money out of elderly care homes, out of schools, etc., etc. And the Asian model, of this not-for-profit organization such as ours exists throughout Asia. Match fixing absolutely is not a bloodless crime. It is a blood crime. There are huge amounts of people that suffer. And we spend a lot of time educating police, law enforcement, government, home affairs bureaus, etc., to explain this point to them. And we've reached a tipping point where people are beginning to realize, hold on a second, when matches are fixed, there is huge society impact as well, not just on soccer, but in society in general.
Are they getting it, Patrick? Are they getting that message?
They are slowly getting the message, but it is taking a long time to get through. And you need to use numbers like $1 trillion to get people's attention. The problem is, since the banking crisis in 2008, we have all these numbers, billions, hundreds of billions, blah, blah, blah. People don't understand what these mean. So we now try and quantify it in terms of how many hospitals we're talking about, how many schools we're talking about,
right,
how many care homes we're talking about. And then politicians begin to set up. And when the moment they set up, then we can work with law enforcement to really make a difference.
See, the tricky thing is, see, you hear that with the $1 trillion there. The tricky thing is, how do you even know that a game has been fixed? How do you know that there's some corruption behind it? I'm going to show you one example, which is really obvious. So this is Sami Sojay. He used to play in the UK football leagues. And there's one incident where, he did something rather naughty on the pitch. Have a look at this. So this is Oldham versus Portsmouth. There's Sami. A little bit of an altercation there. Look what he does. One more. Oops. Ouch. Okay. So that was a red card there. Now, Sami, a little bit later on, was overheard on tape saying he did it deliberately and he got paid $70,000 for that red card. So, caught on tape, later arrested. Known case. But let me bring in Søren Petersen here from Europol. Søren, you've been investigating match fixing. How do you even know when a game has been fixed? What are you looking for? There's a little bit of a delay between myself and Søren. We'll get back to you in just a moment. Catherine, I'm going to share that conversation with you just a little bit. You spent a lot of time looking at doping. Doping is easier to test for. How do you know when a game's been fixed?
Yeah, that's right. We can't take the urine samples from football players, unfortunately, to work out whether they've been involved with a fix. But what Patrick said was absolutely right, is that the organised criminals that are involved in doping are exactly the same as the ones that are involved in match fixing, because they like to get their money any way they can. So whether they're selling steroids or whether they're involved in match fixing or trafficking arms or illegal medicines that aren't prescribed or something else. They're into any game. So following the money trail is how we do it. How you can tell whether a particular match is fixed just from watching the game, I don't think you can, but I think you need to know who the players are, and in terms of who the match-fixing players are and who the fixers are, who they've been speaking to.
All right, Kathy, you're making that sound really easy. It sounds to me absolutely impossible. How do you, where do you even start?
Well, you'd have to be looking at whether or not the players are paid very well, for one thing. And that's the kind of indicator that would suggest whether or not they'd be open to a bribe. You can't imagine that the players in the English Premier League, for example, that are being paid very well, would necessarily be as open to a bribe as someone who is not able to put food on the table for their families. That's an obvious risk. Another obvious risk is when you're not playing for a trophy or not playing for some other match that really counts for something, then that means that it might be open to risk because players don't care about the outcome.
Patrick, I actually want to pick up on something you said earlier about it not being a bloodless crime. So we have this video comment asking who is most vulnerable. So have a listen to this.
Football is one of those few games where youngsters as young as 16 to 17 start playing at a professional level. At such a young age, they earn considerably more as well. What I feel is at such a young age, there arises that inclination and tendency to earn much more without bothering about the consequences of their acts. Even the betting syndicates know that such youngsters are easy target for them, and these youngsters give in to their demands without understanding what their actions would be.
So, Patrick, are younger players more at risk at being involved in this?
I think, absolutely. Of course, younger players are. I spend a lot of time working with FIFA, with Interpol, with UEFA, with the major sports governing bodies. And the point that I always make at the professional level is 25-year-old guys behave like 25-year-old guys, and 16-year-old boys behave like 16-year-old boys. And it doesn't matter whether you're earning $100,000 a week, $200,000 a week, $5 a week. You're still a teenager, or you're still in your mid-20s. That means you are still prone to vulnerable, doing stupid things. When you're young and stupid, you're young and stupid. The match fixers could absolutely prey on this. So there's no doubt about that. Just because you play for Liverpool or Real Madrid or whoever, you're still a 25-year-old guy. You can still do stupid things. I want to come back to the point you just made that Femi, you guys were talking about. How do you spot a game if it's being fixed?
Right.
And actually, it's not that hard. Okay. The situation is this: is that the betting markets, are trade like the financial markets. Okay, when there are huge spikes, it's all kinds of reasons why this can happen. In the betting markets, it can be because a star player may not be playing. It could be that the manager has changed the team lineup. It could be motivational reasons, all kinds of reasons. And when there are spikes in the betting markets, people will try and explain them. You then go through your checklist of trying to explain them, and if you can't explain them, if the star player is playing, if the team lineups haven't been changed or whatever, then you eventually say, hold on, what is the explanation for the odds moving so greatly? And that would be a firm indication that there have been some manipulation. And to put it into context that an international audience can understand. Everybody knows that the Dow Jones is currently at 16,800. Okay?
Yes, everybody knows that. Thanks, Patrick. Yes.
If you go into your office tomorrow and it's 12,000, or you go home tonight and it's 17,000 or 18,000, you know something very weird and wrong has happened.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's exactly the same in the sports betting markets. When they move to something which is irrational or inexplicable, then you can start going, hold on, something has happened here. We need to try and investigate it.
See, Patrick, you mentioned something really interesting, and this is something that FIFA is doing right now. They have an early warning system, and they have a little video that explains how that works. So have a listen to this. This is one of their security department officials.
So our work is actually, we can divide it into two parts. First part is watching the match live as it unfolds on TV. Second part is our own system, our own monitoring system, the EVAS, where we can see all the odds changes during the game from all the bookmakers we want to. So we look into the odds, and if there are any suspicious odds movements, then we go deeper into the game and analyze it, discuss it with the other employees of the company and then decide if it's worth reporting or if it's just an unusual betting pattern without any match fixing background.
So that's the way that the early warning system is working. That's what FIFA has in place right now. Malika, what's the community saying?
Well, there's also suggestions from them on how this can be curbed. Catherine Sheikh online says, around the time of major matches, there should be regulation as to who from outside the team interacts with the players. Do you see that happening?
There should be, and I've noticed that in the current World Cup, they've tightened the security enormously. There used to be quite free-flowing ability so that you could make contact with the players, perhaps not in the hotels, they were always fairly secure around that, but apart from that there was easy access. But FIFA has worked to tighten that up in the current Brazil World Cup. Is it good enough? I don't think so, because grooming takes place over a number of years. So to tighten it up just at the World Cup is a bit late. It's a bit after the horse has bolted, if you like. But certainly that's a start.
Patrick is doing pantomime right next to you, Catherine. What does this mean? What's going on in your head, Patrick?
This is so easy. You know, President Mugabe made it very clear, only an amateur rigs the election on the day itself, right? Okay, there's years...
What are you saying there about Zimbabwe?
I'm saying that the Zimbabwe elections are fixed, as everybody
Oh,
understands.
ouch!
And,
Allegedly. Let's get back to football, Patrick.
Okay, well, the point is only a fool would fix it on the day itself, right? Okay, there's huge amounts of manipulation, huge amounts of grooming, huge amounts of work that needs to go into into making this happen long before the game. I like your person's point of view, okay? There should be restricted access, that the footballers and the agents and the officials are far too easily accessible. But FIFA are doing a good job on this. Where they need to improve is when they get the early warning, when they get the information that something is wrong. They need to immediately go and talk to the teams, talk to the referees and go, we've got this information, okay? We're watching you very closely. This happens on every race course in the world, in every race, okay? That the stewards in race courses around the world are watching the bets come in, and if there are bets that they don't understand, they will send a message down to the jockeys at the starting gate and go, we are watching you guys, and we're watching very closely. This kind of immediate action is exactly what is required to help solve this problem.
So he's listening very carefully to what Patrick has been saying, what Catherine's been saying, but we're all a bunch of pundits. This is somebody who's actually investigating matches on a day-by-day basis. So let me bring in Soren here. Soren, how are things going? Are you overwhelmed with your workload? What is the extent of match fixing in football across Europe?
Well, not overwhelmed, but just the fact that Europol is dealing with match fixing, it tells a lot, because Europol is dealing with serious organized crime and terrorism. So we normally go for the worst of the worst and the baddest of the bad criminals. So that Europol now is having a special team unit focusing on this. It tells a lot. But I can mainly speak for a European perspective. I also think that we have to stay a little realistic. It isn't so that all sport today is corrupt. But there is a problem, and we showed it in February 2013 when we had a big press conference in The Hague announcing a joint investigation team and the results from this team with 5 countries, Finland, Germany, Hungary, Slovenia, Austria, and 19 arrests had been made and 380 suspicious games were identified.
Right.
Since then, actually, I think also this has been helping that more focus has been put on match fixing. And at this moment, my colleagues, they are dealing with 10 ongoing investigations around Europe.
Right. And obviously you can't tell us about any of those 10 investigations, or can you?
Obviously not. We are an intelligence agency and we're very much dependent on that our colleagues around Europe, they can rely on us. But if you read the newspapers, open sources, you will see that arrests are made in some Central European countries and also north of Central Europe.
Right.
So, but what we see is that match fixing is really an issue practically everywhere.
All right, okay.
May I ask a question? Femi, can I ask a question of Soren?
Go ahead.
Soren, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may. Ask the question, Patrick.
Great.
You're most welcome.
My question, thank you, and good evening to you. Soren, a lot of people talked about the Europol press conference that you just referred to, the 700 games, etc., etc. Many people said that there wasn't one game that you specified that people didn't already know about, and that in fact the allegation made was that this was purely a bureaucratic play between you and Interpol, that you were losing ground on Interpol, and that actually you were just trying to say something without actually having a lot of substance. And
okay,
people
Patrick,
let's
leave the question.
Now, I don't know.
Patrick, I've got 2 minutes for Soren to answer.
Yeah.
So Soren's getting the point of your question there. Soren, go ahead.
I would very much like to answer that one. What was announced in that press conference was the work about a lot of dedicated police officers having worked together for more 1.5 years, and a lot of the results were out of Germany, very good professional colleagues in Germany. And actually, since then, many of these people have gone to court and even to prison. So there was even ongoing results announced at that press conference. So I don't quite agree with you.
All right, so, I'm looking at Patrick's face there, and he's not quite believing you. What's the issue going on here, Patrick? What's the subtext that you're not sharing with us? Share it.
Well, the subtext is that the FIFA investigators, the people like Terry Steens, who appeared on Dispatches on Channel 4 on Monday, and behind a lot of this stuff.
And that is it's a Channel 4 UK TV network.
UK Channel 4 documentary. These people who are leading the charge in this area, the very smart, serious, well-informed guys who've been doing this for years, would say that every game that Europol had mentioned, that there was nothing new in the file. That's what they would say. And so I'm just concerned about, politics getting in the way of the real investigation here into presidents of associations, referee committees, that kind of stuff.
You're not the only one concerned, Patrick. I'm going to play a video comment from someone.
I can assure you that a lot of things have happened since then. And actually, as I say right now, at this moment, we are supporting 10 ongoing investigations around Europe. So there is actually a lot of actions being taken.
And Soren, that point is well taken. Patrick, I'm going to jump in here because I want someone to pick up on what you were saying, someone online who sent us this video comment. And Catherine, I'd actually like you to have a listen to this. Let me know what you think of what he has to say. It's some pretty strong words here.
Match fixing is the single greatest threat to global football today. As criminal syndicates continue to insinuate themselves into leagues and federations worldwide, manipulating the results of matches, you have to believe that at some point, fans are just going to lose interest. And that begs the question of who's responsible for cleaning up the game. You look at FIFA and the great event they're putting on now in Brazil, but FIFA must do more to confront this problem head on.
Catherine, who is responsible? Is it just FIFA, and what can they realistically do?
Yeah, I totally agree. It comes from the top, doesn't it? Because if you haven't got organisations that are clean and can be regarded as transparent, accountable, and have integrity, then it's going to filter down to the rest of the organisation. Governance is key, and FIFA can't do it alone. Individual governments can't do it alone. We've got the World Anti-Doping Agency on the anti-doping side, and there are lots of questions about whether we should set up a similar kind of world body. I don't know if that's going to work, or whether we just can develop partnerships and collaborations between universities, not-for-profit organisations, the sports industry, of course, and individual governments to try to combat match fixing. But it's a much more difficult problem, I think, to sell politically than is doping.
Right. I've got one suggestion back here. This is an education online program. Have a look at my laptop. I'm going to start it here. It's called Match Fixing Kick It. And online, Interpol and also FIFA provide a whole range of information and programs and modules. It depends if you're a player, you might be a manager, you might be another kind of sports official, and it gives you lots of different opportunities to learn about match fixing and where you might be led astray. So that goes back to that idea that you might be 25, but you might not be too bright if you're in football. So this is a little bit of the education. I am so in trouble now. A little part of the educational push to maybe clean up
Absolutely
the game of
it is.
football. You heard the chuckle there of Patrick J. He's Hong Kong's Jockey Club sports betting operator. Catherine Ordway is a sports lawyer and a lecturer at the University of Canberra in Australia. And Soren Peterson was from Europol. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation. Now, I am not here on Monday because Nigeria is playing France and I am going to be cheering on one of those teams. But the stream will be doing what?
We'll be looking at Chile. The fierce land battle between Chile and its indigenous people. Could a recent political move by Chile's president end that war? That's for Monday, and until then, we'll see you online.